Ethan had always been someone who couldn't ignore a person in need. He was the kind of man who saw beyond what others saw, who noticed the small things that most people missed. On a cold evening, as he was walking home after a long day at work, something unusual caught his attention. It was the sound of someone shivering, a soft cry lost in the hum of the busy city streets. As he walked closer, he saw her. A young woman sitting against the brick wall of an old building, her head down, her arms wrapped tightly around herself to stay warm. Her clothes were torn, and her face was pale, covered in dirt. She looked like she had been out there for a while. Ethan couldn't just walk past her. He paused, looked around, and then took a step closer. "Hey," he said softly, not wanting to startle her. "Are you okay?" The girl slowly lifted her head, her eyes tired and distant. She looked like she hadn't slept in days, her skin pale from lack of sunlight. There was a faint bruise on her cheek, and her lips trembled as she spoke. "I'm fine," she whispered, barely loud enough for Ethan to hear. Just cold." Ethan's heart sank. He couldn't just leave her there. He took a step forward, offering his hand. "Come with me," he said, trying to keep his voice warm and kind. "You can get some food and rest. I have a place not far from here." The girl hesitated, her eyes studying Ethan with distrust. She seemed to be weighing her options, unsure of what to do. Ethan could see that she was used to being let down, used to people walking by without even a glance. He didn't want to be like the others. "It's okay," he reassured her. "I'm not going to hurt you. You can trust me." She seemed to consider his words for a moment before finally accepting his offer. Slowly she stood up, clutching her ragged coat around her. She didn't say a word as she followed Ethan. Her steps uncertain, but hopeful. As they walked through the darkened streets, Ethan tried to think of something to say. He didn't want to make her feel uncomfortable, but the silence between them felt heavy. He glanced over at her and saw that she was looking down, lost in her own thoughts. "Do you have a name?" he asked gently. The girl didn't answer at first. Then, after a long pause, she finally spoke. "Arya," she said quietly, her voice barely audible. "My name is Arya." "Arya," Ethan repeated, smiling kindly. "That's a beautiful name." Arya didn't respond, but Ethan thought he saw the smallest flicker of something in her eyes. Maybe it was hope, or maybe just a moment of peace. Either way, it made him feel a little lighter. When they reached his apartment, Ethan led Arya inside. His place wasn't much, just a small one-bedroom apartment on the second floor of a building. But it was warm, and that was all that mattered. He quickly went to the kitchen and made her a simple meal, just some soup and bread, nothing fancy. He placed the food on the small table in front of her, but Arya didn't seem eager to eat. She just stared at the bowl for a moment before lifting the spoon to her lips. Ethan sat across from her, watching her in silence as she ate slowly. She didn't seem to have much of an appetite, but he could see that she was hungry. "She just hadn't had a meal like this in a long time, thank you," she said quietly after a few moments, finally looking up at Ethan. I didn't think anyone would help me." Ethan smiled gently. "You don't need to thank me. Everyone deserves a little kindness now and then." Arya didn't respond right away. She looked down at her food, deep in thought. Ethan wasn't sure what was going on in her mind, but he knew she had been through a lot. He could see it in the way she held herself guarded, cautious and afraid. But there was something else there, something he couldn't quite place. Strength, maybe. He could see that Arya wasn't someone who gave up easily as she finished eating. Ethan stood up and began to prepare a place for her to sleep. It wasn't much, just the couch, but it would have to do. He went into the closet and grabbed a blanket, spreading it out on the couch. "You can sleep here tonight," he said. "I'll get you some extra blankets if you need them." Arya nodded, her eyes flicking around the small apartment. She seemed unsure, but she didn't argue. "Thank you," she said again, her voice barely above a whisper. Ethan smiled and nodded, then headed for his own bed. He didn't say anything else, not wanting to push her. As he lay there, staring at the ceiling in the dark, he couldn't help but think about how his life had changed in just one evening. A simple act of kindness, and everything was different. He didn't know why he had helped Arya, but something about her made him want to protect her. Little did Ethan know, This small decision, this simple act of inviting a stranger into his home, was going to change his life in ways he couldn't imagine. Arya wasn't just any girl. She had a past, a future, and a secret that would soon be revealed. But for now, she was just a girl in need of shelter and kindness. And for Ethan, that was enough. Thinking about the device he had found, it was always in the back of his mind like a riddle he needed to solve. Every time he looked at Arya, he wondered if she knew something about it. But she never said a word. Arya had settled into the small apartment, and though she still seemed a bit reserved, there were moments when she let her guard down. She had begun helping Ethan with small things, like washing the dishes or tidying up the place. It was clear she was used to doing everything on her own, but slowly she was learning to trust Ethan, or at least to accept his help. One evening, after dinner, Ethan sat across from Arya, feeling a strange need to ask her more about her past. He had learned that she had been living on the streets for a while, but she had never told him why or how she ended up there. There was always a wall, a barrier that kept her from opening up completely. Ethan wanted to understand her, to know her story. "Arya," he began carefully, his voice soft. "I know we haven't talked much about your past, but I was wondering, if you're comfortable with it, could you tell me what happened? How did you end up on the streets?" Arya paused, her eyes dropping to the table. Ethan could see her struggle with the question. She seemed torn, as if she wanted to answer but wasn't sure if she could trust him with the truth. I don't know if I can tell you everything," Arya replied, her voice quiet. "It's not that I don't want to, it's just—" Hard Ethan nodded, understanding. "You don't have to tell me anything you're not ready to share, but I want you to know that I'm not going to judge you. You don't have to be alone anymore." For a long moment, Arya said nothing. Ethan could see the weight of her past in the way her shoulders hunched, in the way her hands trembled slightly. He wanted to reach out, to comfort her, but he didn't. Want to push her too much? Finally, Arya looked up at him, her eyes filled with a mixture of fear and resolve. "It's not just that I was homeless," she said slowly. "I wasn't just rejected by people. I was rejected by my own kind." Ethan's brow furrowed, confusion growing in his chest. "Your kind?" he asked, unsure of what she meant. Arya took a deep breath before speaking again. "I'm not from Earth. I come from a place far away, a different world. My people. We were once part of a larger group, a peaceful group of beings who traveled the stars. But something went wrong. We were exiled, sent away, and now I'm one of the last of my kind." Ethan felt a chill run through him. He had suspected there was more to Arya than she had let on, but he hadn't imagined something like this. His mind raced, trying to process her words. "Are you saying you're an alien?" Ethan asked, his voice barely a whisper. Arya nodded, slowly, her eyes searching his face for any sign of fear or rejection. "Yes, I'm not human. My people were exiled because we were different, because we couldn't fit into the worlds we were a part of. And now I'm alone. My family, my people, they're gone." Ethan felt his heart ache for her. He had no idea how much pain she was carrying, how much weight she had been forced to bear on her own. He didn't know what to say. All he could do was look at her with compassion. "You're not alone anymore," he said softly, his voice steady. "I don't know everything about you, but I can tell you that I care about you. It's love. And I'll help you however I can. You don't have to be afraid." Arya's eyes softened, but there was still a hint of doubt in them. "I don't know how to live like this," she whispered. "I don't know how to be with humans. I've spent so long hiding from everyone. I don't even know how to trust anyone anymore." Ethan sat up straighter, leaning forward slightly. "You don't have to do it alone. I know you've been through a lot, and I don't expect you to trust me right away. But I'm here, and I'm not going anywhere." For the first time, Arya's lips curved into a faint, almost shy smile. It wasn't much, but to Ethan, it was enough. It was the first real sign of hope he had seen in her eyes since the moment they met. Just then, Ethan remembered the device he had found, and a new wave of questions hit him. He looked at Arya, his curiosity getting the best of him. I found something a few days ago, a small device. It looks kind of alien. You know anything about it? Arya's face went pale. She froze for a moment, her eyes wide with surprise and fear. Ethan could see that he had touched on something important. Where did you find it? She asked, her voice trembling. It was in an alley near my apartment, Ethan replied. I thought it was just some kind of gadget, but when I touched it, it felt different. Like it was alive. Arya stood up quickly, her hands shaking. Give it to me, she said urgently. I need to see it. Ethan followed her lead, getting up from the table. He led her to the small drawer where he had placed the device. When Arya saw it, her eyes widened in recognition. This is a communication device, she said, her voice tight. It's connected to my people, to the ones who sent me here. It's more than just technology, it's a way for me to communicate with them. If they find it, they'll know I've been exposed. They'll come for me, and they won't stop until they have me back. Gosh. Ethan felt his heart race. He realized that Arya's past wasn't just a sad story, was a matter of life and death. And now, whatever he had done for her, he was in this with her. 2. The device in Arya's hands felt like the world had shifted beneath Ethan's feet. He could see the panic in her eyes, a fear so raw and deep that it made his stomach tighten. This wasn't just about a lost or broken gadget. It was about something much more dangerous, something that could change everything. I didn't know it was that important, Ethan said quietly, almost apologetically. As he watched Arya closely, I just thought it was some kind of strange tech. I never imagined it could cause this. Arya, holding the device tightly in her hands, nodded slowly, her breath shaky. It's more than just tech, Ethan. It's a lifeline, a way for my people to find me. If they trace it back to me, they won't just come for me, they'll come for everything I've been hiding. The weight of her words settled heavily in the room. Ethan's mind raced as he tried to process what she had just said. He had already realized that Arya wasn't just an ordinary girl, but now it was clear that she was entangled in something much bigger than he had imagined. This device wasn't just a piece of technology, it was the key to Arya's past, and possibly to her future. He could see the worry in her eyes, and he knew that she was battling with a decision. She was torn between trust and fear, between staying hidden and accepting help. What do we do now? Ethan asked, his voice steady despite the chaos spinning in his mind. Arya took a deep breath, closing her eyes for a moment.
When she opened
them again, there was a new determination in her gaze. I need to get rid of it. We can't let anyone trace it back to me. If my people find me, it won't just be me in danger, it'll be you too. Ethan felt a chill run down his spine. At her words, he had no idea what her people were capable of, but the fear in her voice told him that whatever it wasn't something they could take lightly. He nodded. I'll help you. We'll find a way to destroy it, or at least hide it somewhere. Safe. Arya's lips parted as if she wanted to say something, but she hesitated. Instead, she turned away, walking towards the window as she stared out into the city. I never wanted to drag anyone into this. I never wanted to put anyone in danger. Ethan stood up, walking slowly over to her. You didn't ask for any of this, Arya, but I'm here now. I'm not going to let you face it alone. She turned to face him, her eyes full of gratitude and sorrow. You don't understand. You don't know what they'll do to me if they find out I've been hiding. My people, they're not like humans. They don't forgive easily. Ethan felt a pang of sympathy in his chest. I know you're scared, but I believe in you. Whatever happens, I'll be here. I won't let anything happen to you. Arya took a shaky breath and nodded, her hands still holding the device like it was the most precious thing in the world. Thank you, Ethan. I didn't expect you to be so kind. I thought maybe you'd be scared of me, of everything that's happening. Ethan shook his head. I'm not scared. I'm not afraid of you. I'm afraid of what'll happen to you if we don't do something. And I'm afraid of losing you. For the first time, Arya's lips curled into a small, soft smile. It wasn't much, but to Ethan, it meant everything. He had never imagined he would care so deeply for someone he had just met. But here they were, in the middle of a storm neither of them had expected. The moment was interrupted by a sudden sound distant. Footsteps, the clink of boots on concrete. Ethan's heart skipped a beat as the noise grew louder. He turned to Arya, his mind racing. "Do you think it's them?" he asked, his voice urgent. Arya's eyes widened. She rushed over to the window and peered through the blinds, her face pale with fear.
What?
She nodded quickly. "They found me." Ethan moved toward the door, his mind racing. "I need to hide the device. Now." Arya grabbed the device and stuffed it into her coat pocket. Her hands shook, but she kept her eyes focused as if trying to think through the panic. "We need to leave. We can't stay here." Ethan grabbed her arm gently. "Where do we go? What's the plan?" "We can't trust anyone," Arya said quickly, her voice barely a whisper. "There's a place, a safe house my people set up. I don't know if it's still safe, but it's the only option we have." Ethan didn't hesitate. "Then we go there." The urgency in the air was thick as Arya quickly gathered her things. She seemed to be thinking fast, each decision crucial to their survival. Ethan grabbed his jacket, and they both headed for the door. As they stepped into the hallway, the sound of footsteps grew louder. It was clear that someone was searching. For them, and Arya was right, they couldn't stay. They rushed down the stairs, the feeling of danger thick in the air. Ethan could feel his pulse racing, his mind spinning with the weight of the unknown. Outside, the streets were busy, filled with people coming and going. But Ethan felt like every eye was on them. They moved quickly, ducking into alleyways and side streets, doing their best to blend in with the crowd. Ethan's thoughts were a whirlwind. Who was after them? What did Arya's people want with her, and what did the device mean? He didn't have all the answers, but one thing was clear. Whatever was happening, it was just the beginning. As they reached the edge of the city, Arya stopped, her eyes scanning the area. She seemed to relax just a little, but Ethan could tell. She wasn't fully safe yet. "We're almost there," she said, her voice low. Ethan nodded. But a sense of unease still gnawed at him. He didn't know what was waiting ahead, but he knew one thing for sure. He wasn't going to stop helping Arya, no matter what came next. They would face it together. The next morning, Ethan woke up to the sound of birds outside his window and the sunlight creeping through the curtains. He stretched and got out of bed, feeling a little lighter than usual. Maybe it was because he had done something good the night before, or maybe it was just the relief that came with helping someone in need. He smiled as he thought about Arya. She had slept on the couch, wrapped up in the blanket he gave her, looking peaceful for the first time in what seemed like forever. Ethan made his way to the kitchen, preparing some breakfast. He tried not to disturb Arya, who was still asleep, her breathing soft and even. He hadn't expected her to stay so long. When he had offered her a place to stay, he thought it would only be for a night, maybe two. But now he wasn't so sure. He made some eggs and toast. He thought about the conversation they'd had the night before. Arya had been so quiet, almost distant, but there was something about her eyes. They were filled with a sadness that seemed too deep to explain. Ethan didn't know much about her, but he could tell she had been through a lot. He wasn't sure what kind of life she had lived, but he knew it couldn't have been easy. Once breakfast was ready, Ethan set the table and gently woke Arya. He didn't want to startle her, so he softly called her name. "Arya," he said quietly. She stirred, her eyes blinking open slowly. For a moment, she just lay there, staring at the ceiling, as if trying to remember where she was. Then her eyes shifted to Ethan, and she seemed to recognize him. "Good morning," he said with a smile. "I made breakfast. It's not much, but I hope you're hungry." Arya nodded slowly, sitting up. She seemed a little unsure, like she wasn't used to being treated this kindly. Ethan didn't know what had happened in her life, but he could tell she wasn't used to people offering her food, much less a safe place to sleep. She didn't speak at first, just gazing at the food on the table. Ethan noticed she looked a little uncomfortable. He pulled out a chair for her and motioned for her to sit. "It's okay," he reassured her. "You can eat. You're safe here." Arya finally moved to the table, sitting down with a slight frown. She hesitated for a moment before taking a bite of the eggs. She chewed slowly, as if savoring the simple meal. "Thank you," she said quietly, her voice still soft. "You didn't have to do this. You don't even know me." Ethan shrugged, sitting across from her. "I didn't do it because I know you," he said. I did it because no one should have to be out there alone. Arya looked at him for a long moment, and for the first time since they had met, he saw a faint glimmer of something in her eyes. Gratitude, maybe, or maybe just the tiniest bit of trust. They ate in silence for a while, but the quiet wasn't uncomfortable. It felt like they were both thinking, processing everything that had happened. Finally, Arya broke the silence. "Why are you helping me?" she asked, her voice still soft but full of curiosity. Most people, they wouldn't. Ethan leaned back in his chair, looking at her carefully. He didn't have an answer right away.
Us.
He wasn't sure why he felt so compelled to help her. It wasn't just pity, not at all. He could see that Arya was more than just the homeless girl she appeared to be. There was something deeper in her, something strong. "I don't know," he said after a moment, his voice sincere. "I guess. I just saw someone in need and I couldn't walk away." Arya didn't respond right away, but she nodded slowly, as if she understood. Ood, Ethan wondered if she had ever had anyone look out for her before. It seemed like she had been alone for a long time, but there was something about her that made him believe she had a story worth hearing. As the day went on, Ethan couldn't help but think about the mysterious way Arya had entered his life. He had no idea who she really was or what kind of past she carried with her, but he couldn't ignore the strange feeling in his gut. There was something important about her, something he hadn't quite figured out yet. He tried not to think too much about it, but it nagged at him. Later that afternoon, as Ethan was walking back from the grocery store, he noticed something strange. As he passed a small alley near his apartment, he saw a glimmer of something metallic sticking out of a trash bin. Curiosity piqued. He moved closer. It was a small device, unlike anything he had ever seen before. It was shiny, sleek, and seemed to pulse with a faint glow. Ethan reached down, picking it up carefully. When he held the device, he felt a slight hum, as if it were alive in some way. It was heavy in his hand, much heavier than it looked. His first thought was that it was some sort of strange high-tech gadget, but he couldn't shake the feeling that it was more than just an object. He glanced around, wondering if anyone had dropped it, but the street was empty. Ethan looked back at the device and felt an odd connection to it. He didn't know why, but something about it seemed familiar, as if he had seen it before. As he made his way back home, he couldn't stop thinking about it. When he entered his apartment, he was about to put the device down when he remembered something. Arya. She had been looking at him strangely when she woke up, as if she recognized him. It made him wonder if there was more to her than he could see. Could she be connected to this strange device? Little did Ethan know, this device was more than just an object. It was a key to understanding Arya's past and to the mystery of why she had come into his life. The streets of the city were dark and quiet, but the feeling of danger still hung in the air. Arya and Ethan had been running for what felt like hours, ducking behind corners, moving quickly to avoid being seen. Ethan's heart pounded in his chest, the fear he felt for Arya growing with each step. He could hear the sound of distant footsteps. Behind them, echoing through the empty streets like a warning, Arya was moving fast. But Ethan could see that she was exhausted. Her breaths were shallow, and her pace had slowed. She was trying to hide her fear, but Ethan could see the way her eyes flickered with worry. She was more than just scared. She was terrified. "Are we close?" Ethan asked, his voice low. Arya nodded, glancing over her shoulder to make sure they weren't being followed. "Just a little farther," she said, her voice tight with urgency. "We need to get to the safe house. It's the only place where I can hide." Ethan felt the weight of her words. The safe house was their last hope, the only place where Arya might be able to escape the danger chasing them. But what if it wasn't safe? What if they were walking right into another trap? Ethan couldn't shake the feeling that something was wrong. But he couldn't let Arya down. He had promised her that he would protect her, and he would do whatever it took to keep that promise. They turned a corner, and Arya stopped suddenly, her hand on his arm, to hold him back. Ethan's heart skipped a beat. He thought he heard something footsteps, closer this time. Arya's eyes were wide, scanning the area, her body tense. "They're close," she whispered. "They've found us." Ethan felt a cold chill run. Down his spine, they were running out of time. They couldn't afford to keep running. They had to make a choice. They had to fight or find a way to hide. "We can't outrun them forever," Ethan said, his voice steady despite the fear he felt. "If we keep running, we'll just keep being hunted. We need to fight back." Arya turned to face him, her expression serious. "I can't fight them, Ethan. I don't have the strength to go up against my own people. They're too powerful. They've trained their entire lives for this." Ethan's mind raced as he thought about their options. He knew Arya was right. He didn't have the skills to fight off whoever was chasing them, and neither did she. But there had to be another way. They couldn't just give up. "We need to hide," Ethan said, his voice firm. "Can't let them catch us. If we make it to the safe house, maybe we'll have a chance." Arya nodded, her face pale with fear. "The safe house is the only place where I might be able to contact my people. It's the only way I can try to stop them from coming after me." Ethan grabbed her hand. "Then we go there. We have to trust that it's safe." They moved quickly, weaving through the streets, sticking to the shadows to avoid being seen. Ethan's mind was racing, trying to come up with a plan. He knew that their time was running out, and that every decision they made from here on out could be the difference between life and death. As they reached the edge of the city, Arya suddenly stopped. She looked up, her eyes scanning the horizon. Ethan followed her gaze and saw nothing but an empty street ahead. But something about the way she was looking, the way her body tensed, told him that something wasn't right. "This way," Arya said suddenly, pulling him down a narrow alley. "We're close. It's just through here." Ethan didn't question her. He trusted her instincts, and he knew that if they were going to make it out alive, they had to stick together. They moved quickly, the sound of their footsteps echoing. In the quiet night, as they turned another corner, Arya stopped again, her eyes wide with shock. In front of them stood a group of figures, cloaked in dark robes. Their faces were hidden in shadow, but Ethan could tell that they were not human. Their presence felt wrong, like something out of a nightmare. Arya froze, her hand tightening around Ethan's. "They're here," she whispered, her voice barely audible. "They've found me." Ethan stepped forward, trying to stay calm. "Who are they?" "These are my people," Arya said quietly. "The ones who exiled me. The ones who want to take me back." The figures didn't move, but Ethan could feel the tension in the air. They were waiting, watching them. Arya stepped in front of Ethan, her body tense, ready for whatever was coming. "What do they want with you?" Ethan asked, his voice firm. "They want to bring me back?" Arya said. "They think I've betrayed them. They think I'm the last hope for their survival. But I'm not like them. I can't go back." Ethan stepped closer, his heart pounding in his chest. "You don't have to go back, Arya. I'll fight for you. We'll fight together." She turned to look at him, her eyes full of emotion. "You don't understand. I don't want to hurt anyone. But if they take me back, they'll never stop. They'll keep coming for me, and they'll keep hurting everyone I love." Ethan looked at her, his eyes filled with determination. "Then we'll stop them. Together." For a moment, there was silence between them, as if the weight of the decision they had to make hung in the air. Ethan knew that this was the moment where everything would change. They could either give up, let Arya go back to a life of pain and fear, or they could fight and face the unknown. "I won't let them take you," Ethan said, his voice firm. Arya looked at him, and for the first time, a small spark of hope appeared in her eyes. "Then, let's do this," she said. The figures in front of them didn't move, but the tension was thick in the air. Arya stood in front of Ethan, her posture rigid as if she were bracing for impact. The strange figures, cloaked in dark robes, remained still, their eyes hidden in the shadows, but their presence was unmistakable. They weren't here for a casual conversation. They were here for Arya. Ethan's heart raced, and his mind raced, even faster. This was it. There was no turning back now. Arya's people, the ones who had exiled her, were standing in front of them, and they wanted her back. "What do you want with her?" Ethan asked, his voice steady but full of determination. The figure at the front of the group stepped forward slightly, its movements calm and controlled. "She belongs with us," the figure said, its voice low but strong. She is the last of our kind, and she must return to fulfill her destiny. Arya's face twisted in pain, her eyes showing a mixture of fear and anger. I don't belong with you, she said, her voice shaking but firm. You exiled me. I'm not part of your plans anymore. The figure's head tilted slightly. As if studying her, you have no choice, Arya. Your people need you. You are the only one who can bring us back to power. You cannot hide from us forever. Ethan moved closer to Arya, stepping in front of her, protecting her from the figure's cold gaze. She's not going anywhere with you, he said, his voice sharp. She's not your tool. She's her own person. The figure didn't react immediately, but after a long moment it spoke again, its tone still calm, but now carrying an edge. You don't understand, human. You're in the way. You think you can protect her, but you don't know what you're dealing with. Leave now, and we won't harm you. Ethan's pulse quickened. He had no idea what kind of power these beings had, but he wasn't going to back down. Not now. Not when Arya needed him most. I won't leave her, Ethan said firmly. You'll have to go through me first. Arya looked at him, her eyes wide with surprise. For a moment she seemed unsure, her gaze flicking between Ethan and the strange figures before her. But then she stepped forward, standing beside him. No, Ethan, she said softly, her voice full of both sadness and resolve. I can't let them take you. You don't know what they're capable of. I've seen their power. Ethan reached for her hand, squeezing it gently. I don't care what they can do. I won't let them take you. We'll fight. Together. Arya stared at him for a moment, her eyes filled with so many emotions. She was scared. Yes, but there. Was something else there? To something new? Hope. She had never believed she could fight back. But now, standing next to Ethan, she realized she didn't have to do it alone. I'm not going anywhere, Arya said, her voice growing stronger. I don't care what they want from me. I won't go back to a life of fear. Ethan looked at her, his heart swelling with pride. They were in this together, no matter what. The figures in front of them didn't move, but Ethan could feel the change in the air. There was a shift in the tension. The figure who had spoken before raised one hand, and for a moment, Ethan feared that they were about to attack. But then the figure's voice came again, softer this time. You're making a mistake, it said, a hint of sorrow in its tone. This is not a fight you can win, Arya. We have the strength of an entire race. Behind us, you cannot stand against us. Arya's eyes narrowed, and she stepped forward, standing tall and unafraid. I've been running from you for so long, she said, her voice firm, but not anymore. I won't hide. I won't let you control me. The figure was silent for a moment, as if considering her words. Then, with a quick motion, it raised its hand again. The air seemed to crackle with energy, and Ethan felt a sudden rush of power. He instinctively moved to protect Arya, but before he could do anything, the figure lowered its hand. You will regret this, the figure said quietly, almost as if speaking to itself. But if this is your choice, then so be it. The moment the figure spoke, the other cloaked figures behind it stepped forward, their movements synchronized. They moved as one, their bodies sleek and quick, their forms cloaked in darkness. Ethan's heart skipped a beat as he realized they were about to make their move. But before they could reach them, Arya stepped in front of him, her hands raised. There was a faint shimmer in the air around her, a soft glow that seemed to come from within. She looked at Ethan, her eyes full of determination. Get back, she said, her voice calm, but filled with power. I'll protect you. Ethan took a step back, watching in awe as Arya's energy began to glow brighter. She was no longer the broken, fearful girl he had met days ago. She was strong, stronger than he had ever known. The figures paused, their eyes widening as they recognized the power Arya was unleashing. It wasn't the same power they had expected, the power they had sought to control. This was something different, something pure, something that came from within her. You've unlocked it, one of the figures said, its voice full of surprise and disbelief. How? Arya didn't answer. Instead, she raised her hands higher, the glowing energy around her becoming brighter, more intense. Ethan watched as the figures hesitated, clearly unsure of how to proceed. For the first time since he had met Arya, Ethan saw the full extent of her power. She wasn't just a victim of her past. She was a force to be reckoned with. You won't. Take me, Arya said firmly, her voice steady and strong. Not going anywhere. The figures slowly stepped back, their eyes filled with hesitation. They had underestimated her, and now they were seeing just how wrong they were. For the first time, Arya was not afraid. Neither was Ethan. The air was thick with tension. But as Arya stood tall, glowing with an inner strength, the strange figures before her hesitated. Ethan watched in awe as Arya's power filled the space between them, a force of nature that he had never imagined. She wasn't the fragile girl he had met on the streets. She was someone entirely different, now someone who could protect herself and those she loved. For a long moment, no one moved. The figures were still there, eyes fixed on Arya, who was standing firm, her body glowing with power. Ethan could feel the heat coming from her energy, and he knew that this was no ordinary force. This was something far beyond what he could ever understand, yet, in that moment, he also knew something else. He knew that he would stand by her, no matter what happened next. Finally, one of the figures took a step forward, its voice soft, but full of authority. You have no idea what you're dealing with, Arya. This power you wield, ... it's dangerous. It will destroy you if you don't control it. Arya's eyes never left the figure. I don't care about the danger. I've spent my whole life running from you. I won't do it anymore. Ethan could feel the weight of her words. She had been running from her past, from the people who had exiled her for so long. But now, standing here with the power to fight back, she had made a choice. She wasn't going to let them control her any longer. She wasn't going to let them take her back to a life of fear and pain. The figure shook its head slowly, as if it couldn't believe what it was hearing. You don't understand, do you? You are the last hope of our people. Without you, we will fall. Arya's expression remained hard, her voice steady. I am not your hope. I'm not a tool for you to use. I have my own life now, and I'm not going back. There was a long silence. Ethan could feel the pressure building the moment before something big was about to happen. He didn't know if Arya's decision would be enough to stop them, but he knew that she had made up her mind. She wasn't going to back down. The figures exchanged glances, their eyes filled with uncertainty. Finally, the leader spoke again, his voice softer this time. Then we will let you go, but know this, you will never be free. Your past will follow you wherever you go. Arya didn't flinch. I can't control my past, but I can control my future. I choose to live it on my terms. With that, the figures turned and began to walk away, disappearing into the shadows. They didn't speak another word, and as they left, the tension in the air seemed to lift. Arya lowered her hands, and the glowing energy around her slowly faded. The night felt quiet again, but Ethan could still feel the weight of what had just happened. He was standing beside someone incredible, someone who had the strength to face her past and choose her future. Ethan stepped toward her, his heart still racing. Are you okay? He asked softly, his voice full of concern. Arya nodded, but there was something different about her now. There was a calmness in her eyes, a sense of peace that hadn't been there before. I'm more than okay, she said, her voice steady. For the first time in my life, I'm free. Ethan smiled, feeling a rush of relief. He had seen her struggle, seen her fear, and now seeing the strength in her, he knew that everything had changed. She was no longer the girl he had met in that alley. She was someone who had found her own power, her own path. The two of them stood there for a moment, taking in the quiet around them. The danger had passed, but the journey wasn't over. Arya's past would always be a part of her, but now she had control over her future. And so did Ethan. He wasn't just protecting her now. He was standing beside her as an equal, ready to face whatever came next. Where do we go from here? Ethan asked, breaking the silence. Arya looked up at him, her eyes filled with warmth. Wherever we want, she said with a smile. We make our own path now, together. Ethan felt a surge of hope in his chest. The world was full of uncertainty, full of dangers they hadn't even begun to understand. But for the first time, he wasn't afraid. He knew that whatever happened, he and Arya would face it together. They had both chosen a new path, one where they were free to be who they truly were, and that was all they needed. The night sky above them seemed to reflect the change, as if the stars themselves were celebrating the new beginning that was unfolding. It was a small victory, but it was theirs. And with that, Arya and Ethan took their first steps into a future full of possibilities. The past was behind them, and the future was theirs to shape.